In Oaks, California, Thursday night for the 12 people murdered in a shooting at a bar there the night before. Investigators still trying to learn the shooter's motive.
They do not believe that the suspected shooter, Ian David Long, worked with anyone else, and they still don't have a grasp on his mindset leading up to the mass shooting. Investigators spent the day at the ex-Marine's home taking out several boxes of evidence. They're trying to find any clues, whether it's physical, digital, or on social media, that could help them understand the suspect.
Fox's Jeff Paul. David Long had served with the Marines in Afghanistan. Fierce Santa Ana winds are whipping several California wildfires. One north of Sacramento has virtually destroyed the town of Paradise.
Houses are burning on both sides, unfortunately, and we're losing quite a bit. And there's no stopping it until these guys get a handle on the winds and they can get back in there.
It's Paradise resident George Arandar. CAL FIRE estimates a couple thousand structures in Paradise have been burned. Evacuations have been ordered in the hills around Ventura County in Southern California, where two other fires are burning.
We have some concerns as it will and could move laterally. The challenge also for us is that we are at the beginning of a significant Santa Ana wind event that will last a number of days.
That's Ventura County Fire Chief Mark Lorenzen. Florida's Governor Rick Scott, the apparent winner of Tuesday's Senate race, is accusing election officials in two heavily Democratic Florida counties of trying to steal the election.
We won. I'm going to be the U.S. Senator. I'm going to fight this all the way. We're going to do everything we can. We're looking at every legal remedy we can exercise. We're going to fight this, and we're going to win this.
Scott says election boards in Palm Beach and Broward counties are blocking access to the vote counting. This is Fox News.
Enjoy a world-class breakfast in historic Talafofo at Jeff's Pirates Cove. Serving as both a military dispensary, recreation, and rehab center for pilots after the war, Jeff's Pirates Cove offers a taste of local history while you start your day with a delicious omelet or steak and eggs. If you're on a budget, pick up one of Jeff's $8 breakfasts, all served up with endless coffee. For reservations and information, call 789-COVE. That's 789-2683. Start your day at Jeff's Pirates Cove. Open daily at 8 a.m. in historic Ipan, Talafofo.
The season of giving is here, and the stations of Choice Broadcasting want to give back. 93.3 The Point, Boss 104, Star 101, and Lux Guam present Charity of Choice. Each of our radio personalities have chosen a Guam charity that they would like to benefit.
And I chose Habitat for Humanity. Tune in daily to see how you can help.
Charity of Choice 2018 is brought to you by Choice Broadcasting Company, Lux Guam, American Water Tech, and the station that gives from the heart, 93.3 The Point.
The migrant caravan moving through Mexico is taking a pit stop.
Leaders of the caravan say it will be on the move again soon, but for now, some 5,000 migrants are resting here in Mexico City. They say it's a welcome change, and they're thankful for the aid provided by the Mexican government.
It makes me happy because you see how they treat others in this country, when in our country they didn't treat us like this, and it's nice.
But it's not clear when or how the group will proceed. Mexico City is more than 600 miles from the nearest port of entry in Texas, and the caravan is requesting bus transportation and escorts to get them to the U.S. border.
We can't leave just like that if we are not accompanied by police and human rights groups.
Mexico is still offering the migrants asylum. More than 3,000 so far have accepted. In Mexico City, William Lajeunesse, Fox News.
A federal appeals court has blocked President Trump from immediately ending an Obama-era program designed to shield young immigrants from deportation. The judge is saying the administration's decision was based on flawed legal theory. That three-judge panel of the Ninth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals in California unanimously keeping a preliminary injunction in place. The president's decision to end the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program ultimately expected to end up in the Supreme Court. Subaru announcing multiple recalls.
There are two separate Subaru recalls announced involving nearly 400,000 vehicles. Both problems can cause stalling. One recall involves 229,000 Outbacks and Legacies with a software problem that can keep the low fuel light from going off and making the miles left before running out of gas display inaccurate. That can lead to people running out of gas and stalling, increasing the risk of a crash. The other recall covers some 4- to 6-year-old vehicles, the Impreza BRZ, XV Crosstrek, and Toyota Scion FRS. The engine valve springs in about 166,000 of those can fracture, causing the engines to malfunction or stall. Chris Foster, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
It's Micronesia Mall's 30th anniversary, and to celebrate, we are giving away a new Kia Soul LX, a Mazda 3i Sport, the popular Honda Civic LX, and 30 Manila Flyaways during our 30th anniversary Drive-Away Flyaway. Win 3 great cars from Triple J Auto Group, 30 Flyaways from Philippine Airlines, plus thousands of prizes from Burger King and Foot Locker when you play Micronesia Mall's 30th anniversary Drive-Away Flyaway.
At the heart of everything we do is our mission to improve the life of every child. From mungy nennies to growing teens, they'll be in trusted hands at FHP Health Center, where we offer comprehensive pediatric services to nurture and protect your child's health from day one. Begin your little one's journey to good health at FHP with seasoned pediatricians and professional staff who hold decades of combined experience. FHP Health Center, our island, your clinic.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is being brought to you by Sanford Technology Group, STG, delivering service that can't be beat.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution. We're going to chat about that a little bit. I'm going to uncover, because I really shouldn't be covered indoors anyhow. And in a minute, I'll give a little bit of an explanation about the cover and why I happen to be wearing it today and what it is symbolic of. So, as is our usual custom, the reason I took my hat off so I could put my headset on, the reason that we start off with the Second Amendment is that we meaning me, I take a very favorable view towards our United States Constitution, and I try to bring attention to those who have somehow deviated from its rather well-constructed words, one of whom was Mr. Justice Antonin Scalia, may he rest in peace, who had a little difficulty reading the word militia in the Second Amendment. But be that as it may, the Second Amendment says that according to Justice Scalia and the United States Supreme Court, every person has a constitutional right to keep a firearm in his house for his own personal protection. One of the reasons that I read the Second Amendment is the reason just stated. A second reason is that there are those, primarily on the left, who don't hold the Constitution in as high a regard as I do and would try to infringe not only on Second Amendment rights, but on any others that they could, so long as it fits into their agenda. With respect to the Second Amendment, as you know, there was a tragedy in Thousand Oaks, California, yesterday where 12 people were killed by a person with a gun. And it's bad, and there's no way of minimizing it. Of course, I think we all feel bad about the folks in Thousand Oaks who had to endure this. And unfortunately, I wondered just how long it would take after that horrendous shooting before people would start using it for their own political purposes. And I didn't have to wait long. I have a piece here from Breitbart.com, one of the many conservative emails that I review every day is Show Prep. And there's an article here titled, New York Times Nicholas Kristof blames NRA for Thousand Oaks shooting. Ignores California gun control fail. So just a matter of hours, and Nicholas Kristof, a columnist for the New York Times, has the scapegoat that everyone was probably expecting. Everybody over here on our side was expecting. And this is what it says. Here's what the column says. It starts out with a quote. Another needless tragedy in America. This time a gunman opened fire in a bar in Thousand Oaks, killing at least 12 people and killing many more. These horrors happen far more often in America than in other advanced countries, partly because of the outsized political influence of the National Rifle Association. NRA candidates suffered some important defeats in Tuesday's midterm elections, but in a broad swath of red state America, that means where people tend to vote Republicans, it remains potent, controlling politicians who know that an NRA endorsement can make or break an election. Then the column goes on by saying he, meaning Christoph, continues discussing how the NRA, through gun magazines, spurs its members' zealotry. He says the NRA, quote, mobilizes its supporters with magazine covers emblazoned with photos of gun controllers like President Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. Then, towards the end of his article, Christoph returns to the California shooting to say one of the reasons the United States has so many gun deaths is the NRA and its extremist defense of handgun ownership almost without limit. So, sad to say, but that's what happened in Thousand Oaks. Christoph avoids mentioning that the Thousand Oaks attacker used a legally purchased handgun. That means he complied with the left's gun controls to get it. Moreover, Christoph does not mention that California gun controls are among the most stringent in the country. The state has every gun control Democrats are pushing on the national level, and every one of them failed to prevent the attack. California has universal background checks, gun registration requirements, red flag laws, that is, gun violence restraining orders, a 10-day waiting period for gun purchases, and, quote, assault weapons, close quote, ban, a 1 gun per month limit on handgun purchases, a minimum firearms purchase age of 21, a ban on campus carry, a good cause restriction for concealed carry, and controls on the purchase of ammunition, among other regulations. Rather than discuss the failure of these controls, Christoph is blaming the NRA. And I noticed he was also able to slip a zinger in there about red states also, kind of back to, you know, guns and Bibles and that sort of thing. So no surprise, most unfortunate that there are people who are such opportunists that they would use a tragedy like the one I just described for their own political purposes. Well, there's still a little bit more of the story about the Thousand Oaks, the shooting, to be told, about perhaps the mental state of the shooter, some other things like that. By Monday, we'll probably have a pretty complete picture, and I'll more than likely put that on the Second Amendment calendar for Monday. As it is, I promised that after I uncovered, so I could put on my headsets, I promised a little bit of a explanation. So in Marine Corps jargon, this is a cover. What you put on your head is not a hat in the Marine Corps, just like the two-legged devices that one pulls up to his waist are not pants. Those are trousers. The Marine Corps has its own terminology for everything. And there are a series of terms that kind of accrue to Marines. For instance, why are Marines called jarheads? I know that guy that sits over there that I call the smart money, he's saying, well, it's just short for empty jar, because for most Marines there's nothing inside. Yeah, we can expect that out of the smart money, right, Real Joe Cruz? Yeah, but that's not the case. Now, I've heard several different explanations for the term jarhead, but the one I like the best comes back to this. Marines wear covers. What do you put on top of a jar? A cover. So that's where that apparently came from. Marines are called leathernecks because at the very beginning of the Marine Corps, up until 1872, Marines wore high leather collars around their neck, and there are a couple of explanations for that. I think the explanation I like the best, it was because in the beginning of the Marine Corps, some of the people that the Marine Corps fought, for instance, the Tripolitan Corsairs, had scimitars, that is, swords that they whipped around, and having a leather collar around your neck was a protection for perhaps not getting your head chopped off. So that's where that term came from. I'm going to show you the front of this cover again, and you'll notice, if you're one of our Facebookers, you'll see a bulldog prominently displayed on the front of that cover. Well, the historical origin of the bulldog is that in World War I, the Marines really didn't fight like infantry. They fought pretty much like regular infantry. I mean, they didn't fight like Marines. They weren't doing amphibious landings, or they weren't acting as an expeditionary force. They fought pretty much like infantry. But in the Battle of Belleau Wood, which was a key battle in World War I, they fought so fiercely that the Germans called them Teufelhunde. And if you translate Teufelhunde, the English, it comes out bulldog. So the Marines liked that so much that they adopted the bulldog as kind of one of the symbols for the Marine Corps. So if you visit Marine Corps bases, it's not unusual that there will be a pet bulldog on display near the base headquarters. And of course, the symbology is carried over into hats and T-shirts and a lot of other Marine Corps coffee cups, beer can sleeves, other Marine Corps memorabilia, going back to the tradition that was established during World War I. So I suppose you're asking, some of you are probably saying, well, okay, but this is tall tales. This is not a Marine Corps recruitment lecture, is it? No, it's not. But tomorrow is the most important day for all Marines. Tomorrow is the 10th of November. And since, unfortunately, there will be no tall tales tomorrow, a fact that the Real Joe Cruz and I will be regretting all day long, right, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we'll somehow tough it out until Monday, right?
We will.
Yeah. But the United States Marine Corps was founded on the 10th of November, 1775, at a place called Tun Tavern, Pennsylvania. And Marines, wherever they are, all over the world, will stop and try to do some kind of an observance for that Marine Corps birthday. One of the traditions at the Marine Corps birthday is that ordinarily there would be a cake, and the youngest Marine in attendance and the oldest Marine in attendance will cut that cake, preferably with an officer's sword. And I'm very happy to say that last year I was at a gathering where I got to cut the cake. No, I wasn't the youngest one there, although if you know some of our Marine Corps community here on Island, that wouldn't have been a bad guess. So that's why we do that. That's why I went through that little historical footnote here. And I think it's especially important to think in terms of the bulldog, Belleau Wood, Teufelhunde, etc., because Sunday is Veterans Day, the 11th of November. I suspect none of the folks out there, my international listening audience, would remember when instead of Veterans Day, it was called Armistice Day. It was called Armistice Day because an armistice, which is another word for a ceasefire, that ended World War II occurred at 11 a.m. on the 11th day of the 11th month, that is November of 1918. And that was cause for celebration. Maybe, how long has it been? 50 years ago, Armistice Day was renamed Veterans Day. Once upon a time, Veterans Day followed that tradition that it was always celebrated on the Monday nearest the actual day. Veterans didn't like that, so it was changed. So now if Veterans Day is on a Wednesday, you celebrate Veterans Day on Veterans Day, not the nearest Monday there too. Well, it just so happens that this Sunday is the 11th of November, so a lot of the celebrations will be on the 12th of November. And although I suppose I will tip my hat to it, I've probably spent enough time talking about veterans and Marines and things like that today. However, I certainly encourage our Facebookers to chime in on both the Marine Corps birthday and Veterans Day. And you can chime in by calling 888-8255. Easy way to remember that is AAA-TALK, 888-8255. And, of course, we are live streaming on Facebook. So if you're not on Facebook right now, you might want to quickly dart to your nearest digital device and sign in on Facebook so you can not only be hearing Tall Tales, you could actually see what's going on. So on the subject of Facebook, I'm going to take a minute here, and you remember that clever little welcome back song that you play, Real Joe Cruz?
Welcome back.
That's the one. Thank you. Okay. Jack Haddock was the leadoff man on Facebook today, which is pretty appropriate for Jack. And he chimes in and he says, "Hey, Coach, great hat, Semper Fi." Well, thank you. Thank you, Jack. Donna Mila Inta Titano is here. Tom Moffness, welcome. John Dalzo is here. We've got Brad Hewitt, who is locked and loaded. And Ismael Velez, one of our regular, a profound citizen of Tall Tales Nation. Dave Duenas is here, probably still celebrating Tuesday, right, Dave Duenas? Andre Leon Guerrero is here. And Javier M. Atalik, or as we say in Guam, Atalig, Gilita Atalik, Giza Guahan Atalig. Yeah. So Javier says, Biba Mangatsung. That goes all the way back to the days of Frank Blas Sr. And let's see, we've got Shelley Gibson. Thank you for your service. Well, thank you, Shelley. I never heard a shot fired in anger. I was in the 1950s, probably the quietest time in the 20th century to be in the service. And I got to say this, that the Marine Corps gave me a whole lot more than I ever gave it. And I'm really grateful that I spent some time in that organization. We've got, let's see here, Brico Blancafleur, Brad Hewitt. Guy went to a shrink and mentioned his, yeah, okay, we're back to Thousand Oaks. We'll hang on to that probably until Monday, Brad, when we've got a little bit more to go on. I just wanted to take a shot at the NRA while it was still appropriate. Tommy Martinez Aguero, Semper Fi, Brad Hewitt, Lid, okay, I suppose you could say that. Ishmael Velez, Devil Dog. That's another nickname that people give to Marines, Devil Dog, and
yes,
that goes back to the Teufelhunde, right?
It's hardcore.
And let's see, Brad Hokinson, Semper Fi, from Semper Paratus. Semper Paratus is the motto of the United States Coast Guard. And see, how does it go? Semper Paratus, for a guide or fame or glory to. Semper Paratus. Semper Fi, Semper Fidelis, always faithful. Semper Paratus, always prepared. That would be a good motto for anybody in the control room there, Real Joe Cruz.
Yes, sir. I'm in the rear with the gear.
All right. Brad Hewitt, only in the United States. Okay. Adonis Keto Mendiola. Equadnai tungo if familian keto.
Does that mean that he likes to keep still?
No, I'm just teasing him a little bit. It's equadnai tungo nai familian keto. Lo ina anyanai si Adonis Keto Mendiola. Maybe he could use this opportunity as for a little bit of free advertising if he so desires. And here's what he says: all my fellow veterans for their service and sacrifice. Brad Hewitt, you too. Tommy Martinez Aguero, 1st Battalion, 4th Marines. Ooh, all right. And Paz Affligui. Okay, I haven't seen Paz on Tall Tales for a while, but I'm glad she's here. She's a very valuable addition to anything she sets her mind to. So I guess we got a quorum, so we could move forward. And I'm going to start out with the daily news. Hey, very good. I didn't even get the words out of my mouth. I didn't even have a chance to say Demi, you caught me. That's Brad. There's Semper Paratus for you. So prepared that he beat me to the punch on that one. So Meet the Press is the time of the day when we compare the editorials of both newspapers and decide which one is the more edgy, hard-hitting, etc., and give that editorial a blue star. I'm going to pick up on something I mentioned yesterday when we were talking about. Well, I'll wait until winners and losers until I get to William Rufus King. So here's the Daily News editorial. Competition benefits entire community by fostering teamwork. In addition to supplying consumers with goods and services, our local businesses also invest a substantial amount of time and energy into helping the island community. For the last 4 years, Triple J Enterprises has produced an annual high school all-star football game, allowing Guam's most promising players to showcase their skills on teams made up of the best athletes. Before the high school all-stars take the field, the Matua All-Stars, made up of players from Guam National Youth Football Federation, will play. The games take place at Angels Field in Dedido. Gates open at 3 on November 10, with the Matua All-Star kickoff at 4. High school All-Star kickoff at 6:30 p.m. Admission is $1, and it's free if you happen to be a child under 3 years old. Outback Steakhouse will be selling food and beverages. The event provides a wholesome entertainment for families and good competition for athletes. Quote, Triple J is committed to making a real difference in contributing to the development of our youth through sports, said Christine Lujan, Vice President of Marketing for Triple J Enterprises. We found that teamwork in sports, much like business, is a proven way to build up our kids, parents, coaches, and the community at large. Okay, and then going back to the punchline here, I'm skipping over some of this. We congratulate the athletes and the company on organizing this game once again. We hope that it is a tradition that continues into the future. So I would subtitle this this editorial with all you needed to know about earned media and how to go about getting it. I don't know what the column inch value of an editorial in the Daily News is, but I suspect it's quite substantial. Probably not enough to offset the cost of the games, but anyhow, it's got to be very effective given its placement and the kind words from the Daily News. So congratulations, Triple J, for doing something meritorious and for getting some proper earned media out of your good deeds. Well, I'm hearing Real Joe play Dave Brubeck's Take 5, so I'm going to take 5.
I'm John Gibson. This is My Word. As you've seen in the news, it is now an arduous and agonizing process to win admission to the United States as an immigrant. It's worth keeping in mind what it was like in the early 1900s when millions of people immigrated to the U.S., mostly from Europe. They arrived in New York Harbor, several thousand at a time on a single ship. Government agents boarded at anchor off Staten Island and gave the immigrants a cursory inspection for obvious disease. Those that passed, and it was most people by far, then disembarked on Ellis Island. Documentation was a piece of paper created where they boarded in Europe, handwritten, had name, age, destination, country of origin. That's it. On Ellis Island, another round of health inspections, but with such a crush of immigrants, not thorough at all. Rarely a person was held, maybe overnight. The authorities were looking to weed out people with infectious disease or who were suspected of being anarchists or men suspected of being imported to break strikes. Other than that, nothing. It was a paperless era. Documentation was almost entirely verbal, an immigrant speaking to an immigration official. No passports, no such thing as a visa or work permit. After 3 to 5 hours, they were on their way. 10,000 a day entered the U.S. this way. Looking back, we see those were the definition of back in the day. Now, nothing even close. I'm John Gibson. That's My Word.
The problem isn't just not being able to hear or understand, or having to tell people to speak louder. Sometimes the frustration is having to repeat yourself too many times, or speaking so loud you're almost shouting. At Guam Hearing Doctors, we understand that hearing problems affect both sides. One of our goals is to help your hearing for those around you. Call us at 989-TEST to learn more.
Security Title is honored to join in sponsoring Ray Gibson on The Point. Half a day. I'm Mark Benventi of Santa Rita, and this is where I start my day, listening to the voice of our community and sharing thoughts and issues that affect us all. It all boils down to our people, our land. Protei Igumamo. Protect your home. When purchasing or refinancing your home, remember to call the professionals at Security Title, just like you call Ray Gibson in the morning.
Call the experts at Guam Hearing Doctors if you're worried about your hearing. The evaluation is simple and painless.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
So we pick up with the Post, and its editorial, Archdiocese must follow through on helping victims of sex abuse. The Archdiocese of Agania's move to seek bankruptcy protection is a step in the right direction for helping clergy sex abuse victims find hope and healing. The embattled Archdiocese faces more than 180 claims of sexual abuse allegedly perpetrated primarily by certain former priests. With the bankruptcy filing, the Archdiocese will be able to maintain normal operations while setting up a process to sell some assets so that money will be distributed to victims and creditors. This is the best way to bring about the greatest measure of justice to the greatest number of victims, Archbishop Michael Burns said in a statement released Wednesday. We believe that Burns is making strides in bringing justice to victims and in helping a fractured church become whole again. Since coming to the island, he has led the church toward meaningful reforms. With Burns' leadership, the Archdiocese has taken a sensitive and systematic approach to credible allegations of clergy sex abuse. Such a response is needed so that all victims can have their claims resolved in a fair process. The Archbishop's bankruptcy announcement gives us hope not only for victims but also for the wider community. We're glad that Catholic parishes and schools will be able to continue operations after the bankruptcy filing. Despite the clergy abuse cases, the parishes and schools have exerted a mostly positive influence on Guam for decades. Parishes have been more than just a spiritual home for Catholic faithful. They have been the heart of many villages as they have drawn families together in times of conflict and peace. Catholic schools have been strong educational institutions that have equipped students with knowledge and skills. In addition, church teachings have instilled morals in generations of Catholics and non-Catholic Guamanians. With a far-reaching role on Guam, the Archdiocese must continue to make things right. While preventing any further clergy abuse, the Archdiocese must keep reforms on track to mend wounded spirits. Our community deserves nothing less, and we need the Catholic Church to survive its challenges so it can continue to lead the many who look to it for guidance. Well, I'd have to say I agree with everything that the Post says here. I think the Post makes some pretty good points. With all due respect to the Daily News, I'm going to give get that drum roll handy. Today's Blue Star, probably no surprise, goes to the Daily Post. Yep. So we move on from the card, as you were from Demi Ikotny into the card. And I've got some pretty interesting things on the card today. I'm going to go back and work on winners and losers a little bit from Tuesday's election. And as promised yesterday, I'm going to finish up Paul Poplu versus the legislature. There is a criminal case that got some headlines yesterday called People versus Chatverus. I will tell you everything about the evidentiary rules in play there and try to explain why Judge declared a mistrial. So you're going to want to have your Law and Order notebooks handy for that item on the card. I've got one called The Dutchman versus Reality. I've got Girl Scouts versus Boy Scouts, sign of the times. I've got Gosnell versus Hollywood. I've got Rico versus Pot, Rodriguez versus Your Money, and a couple of other ones from way back, and one that, and that's Trump versus birthright citizenship. I think that's almost become a non-issue. I think that Donald got all of the mileage out of that he hoped he'd get, and I suspect he may not pursue it further. But if he does, I've got some pretty good materials on it, and you'll recall that when I did discuss it before, I said that a properly drafted statute might do the trick. Maybe, maybe not. It's not a slam dunk. So first item on the card, winners and losers. And I went through this the other day. I went through this on Wednesday. And, of course, the folks who ran for governor and didn't win lost, of course. Now, whether or not they not only lost but are losers, even if I turn on my sarcasm light, I'm probably not sarcastic enough to rub that in to folks who feel probably somewhat distressed already just by having not prevailed in the election. I also, the last time I mentioned that men are the losers here. And I mentioned it at the end of the program, and I was pretty lucky, because when I left, I didn't find that my tires had been slashed or that someone had labeled or written the word misogynist on my car. But this is what I mean. The fact that we now have 10 females in the Guam legislature and a female governor is apparently a source of celebration in itself for some people. And I have decried the rise of identity politics so many times on Tall Tales, and that's how I view this. There are some females that got elected to the legislature that I think have potential of, or have demonstrated the potential for being good senators. There are some who have demonstrated their capability. There are some, in my mind, who have not. But I don't make my decisions based on whether or not they're males or females. And I haven't voted against somebody because she was a female or he was a man. I haven't voted for somebody because he was a man or she was a female. So when we start trumpeting this fact, oh, we're the first place in America with it all, with a female majority in a legislature and a female governor, it doesn't sit too well. And to me, it's really not, it's not that complimentary of the 15 people, or excuse me, of the 10 people who were elected to the legislature and the one who was elected governor who happened to be of the female sex. I would hope that the recognition of their viable candidacies and their demonstration of apparent capability is something that might be suffered. I'm sorry, not suffered, but celebrated. So I got that off my chest, and I probably won't talk about it again. But like every time, I'm going to be watching the legislature, the new legislature, very closely. And where criticism is due, criticism will arise right here on Tall Tales. And I won't pull my punches for any reason whatsoever. So in that respect, that's why I put down men. Because there are only, if we're going to keep score, there are only 5 men in the legislature. So I suppose that means that we are now at some disadvantage. It shouldn't. We would hope that everybody in the legislature, male or female, has the best interests of all of the people in mind. Also, the left has been preaching to us for so long that there's really no difference at all between men and women, except some minor external differences, but their thought processes, their ability to accomplish difficult tasks, etc., is equal to that of men, and that the only real difference between male and females has been some sociological factors that have worked against women for so long. And what's the word I'm looking for here? Has had an impact on their ability to achieve success in the world. Still not grabbing the word that I'm looking. Oppressed. That women have been oppressed for so long, and this accounts for some of the differences between male and female accomplishments. So if that's the case, then maybe it would be a good idea not to judge things in terms of male and female, but just in terms of people and their own particular accomplishments. Okay. Also, a new addition. I also mentioned the independentistas, or did I mention the independentistas? Maybe not. Harold Cruz finished dead last, and Amanda Bloss, Harold Cruz, who made a name for himself by blocking the road up at Anderson Air Force Base a couple of years ago, finished dead last, and Amanda Bloss, who was the executive secretary of the Chamorro Commission for Independence, which the governor insists on calling the Commission for Self-Determination, didn't finish in the money either. Going on to other one more here, and that would be anti-abortion folks came out losers this time around. The Catholic pro-life group put out a questionnaire to all of the candidates, no surprise, Leon Guerrero, and asked if the candidates would back a particular anti-abortion piece of legislation. The two candidates who won said no. The other four candidates said yes, they would. As far as senatorial candidates were concerned, most answered no response, which is pretty consistent with a theme that I keep seeing repeated here, and that is that the abortion, the A word, as I've referred to it, is kind of taboo. Nobody really wants to talk about it. People want to use euphemisms like pro-life and pro-choice. So when I see no response, what I see is somebody who is probably not anti-abortion, but probably figures that the best thing to do politically, each one looking through his own political prism, figures I'd be better off not answering that than answering it no, which would turn off the anti-abortion folks. But anyhow, when it was all over, only six of the 30 people came out and basically indicated that they were anti-abortion. That is not a victory. And of the six, let's see. Of the six, I'm sorry, it was not six, it was 4. It is 6, yeah. Of the 6, 3 were Republican and 3 were Democrats. So not good news for folks who are opposed to abortion. Then in the winner's circle, something that I didn't mention the first time I went through this, I think for me, everybody who drives on the highways of Guam was a winner during this election season, because the highways weren't clogged up with all of the political graffiti that we've had to endure for elections a long way back into the past. You recall Tommy Morrison sponsored a bill that ended the ability of people to post political signs on public property. I thought it was a good job, well done. It certainly improved the looks of our island, which we want to show off to tourists. I suspect that most tourists weren't impressed by those signs. I got just a little bit to do on winners and losers, and then I'll go back for the rest of the card. We've got a short break coming up here. I can probably finish winners and losers before that big halftime show we have every day at 5:30.
For over 30 years, Sanford Technology Group has been helping companies throughout Guam and Micronesia with their payroll, time and attendance, networking, and other information technology services. Our online integrated payroll and time and attendance solution provides the workforce management tools and expertise to make your business more efficient and employee-friendly. For more information, visit Sanford Technology at 335 South Marine Corps Drive or call us at 647-0220 to schedule a demo today.
Super Typhoon U2 has become one of the strongest storms on record to date. APL recognizes the damage that U2 has left behind and sees an opportunity to help our neighboring brothers and sisters in the CNMI. We humbly ask for the community's assistance in providing donations and supplies to our fellow islanders. All supplies can be dropped off to our APL office or coordinated for pickup and loading. Call 588-4651 for more details and to learn how you can help today.
Celebrate Thanksgiving brunch at Jeff's Pirates Cove, offering lunch buffet on Thanksgiving Day from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Call now for reservations at 789-2683.
So here we are. As is my usual custom, I use the break to take a look at Facebook. So let me share some of the Facebook comments here. Let's see, we've got Elmore Mo Cotton, a person who always cottons to tall tales, is also a jarhead, Vietnam-era veteran, my best who faced the enemy in anger. I was in after Korea and before the Vietnam buildup, so he wishes his best to those who actually saw some combat. Shelley Gibson, Mr. Klitzkie, really? I don't know one oppressed woman, and that's probably because you're not on the left, Shelley Gibson. And what I was saying is that is the rap that the left has been presenting to us for quite some time, that the only difference between males and females is that the women have been so oppressed that they haven't been able to rise to their full potential. So that's not my words. That's just something that I have heard on many occasions. Jack Hattig, I agree that the election of leaders should not be based on gender. So, okay, Jack. Harold Cruz, a.k.a. UAV Boy. I don't know what UAV Boy means. A.k.a. Invasion of Privacy. Jose Martinez, pro-life did not come out as losers. We were born. Good point, Jose. Only the unborn sentenced to death continue to lose. You're absolutely right on that. And then Jose poses a question, am I being blunt again? And the answer is refreshingly so, Jose. Shelley Gibson. Use current, okay, I guess Shelley wants Jose to use his current picture. Ishmael Velez, lipstick government. Check it out, Shelley. Okay, well, so much for that. That's what I was able to mine out of the Facebook comments. So I also cited the Republican Party as a loser the last time I talked about this. And I mentioned that between Governor Calvo and Ray Tenorio, I think they so damaged the Republican brand that it's going to take years of hard work to put it back together again. I wonder if anyone is going to start doing that now, since there won't be a whole lot of time spent dealing with majority tasks, either at the governor's office or at the legislature. Another example of how the Republican Party lost was how one senator won, and that is Mary Torres. Mary Torres won and finished 5th in the pack. And to say that she didn't get any support from the Republican Party is the understatement of the year. The Republican Party gave her no love whatsoever, yet she was able to finish 5th. One of the 5 Republicans who made the cut. 10 others, of course, didn't. Not good news for the Republican Party. And I got to mention Peggy Denny again. Peggy Denny was a winner because Peggy Denny would tell, if Peggy Denny were here, what would she say, Real Joe Cruz?
I recycle and you should too.
Yeah. So a couple of the candidates that got elected were recycled. We had Tello Tidegui and Tina Rose Munya Barnes, people who ran before and lost and were recycled back into the legislature. And then I mentioned that it was Tuesday was a good day to be a Terlahi. Number 1 was a Terlahi. Number 15 was a Terlahi. Number 15 probably is looking at a recount, and maybe he'll be able to hang on. But the interesting thing about number 15, Pito Terlahi, is that he is only the 2nd person in my memory that ever went from village commissioner, that's what we used to call him, Real Joe Cruz, went from village commissioner, village mayor, to the legislature. The only other person that I know of that was able to undergo that kind of metamorphosis was Senator Frank Santos, a former commissioner of Santa Ana, who served several terms in the legislature. So I'm going to put this away. If I have any more thoughts on winners and losers, I'll come back to it. Last time, I was dealing with Paul Poplar versus the legislature, and when Ravel's Bolero gets a little bit too loud, I quit trying to talk over it, and sometimes I just let it go. Sometimes I save the message until the next day. But Revenue and Taxes, Paul Pablo appealed to senators to make sure the language in their bills is clear. He mentioned that the first problem they had was that when the sales tax bill passed, it didn't have an effective date, so they didn't know when to start collecting the tax. Remember that? And this time around, as an example, the 2019 budget bill did not have an effective date for the increase in tax for real property improvements or buildings of $1 million. Rev Tax said it will implement the new, as you were. Rev Tax in a letter to the AG this week, Pablo said, asking clarification on the tax provision in the budget law because the law only states that the tax increase applies only to improvements or buildings with a value of $1 million. Pablo said that there is a question whether those buildings worth $1.2 million or $1.5 million, for example, should be taxed more. I wonder who the writer for these. I wonder who the joke writer is over there at Revenue and Tax that keeps coming up with these things. Pablo said, while Rev Tax understood the senator's intent, the language of the bill that became law did not reflect that intent, so the department had to seek clarification from the Attorney General. And I just have two things to say about that. Back in the days of common law pleading, there was something called the negative pregnant. And it's got nothing to do with abortion, so you're safe. Negative pregnant meant this: if A sued B and said, A sues B and said, B owes me $100, and B puts forth a general denial, I don't owe A $100. B's statement, I don't owe A $100, is negatively pregnant with the admission that B owes A $99.99. So the way it worked was the 1 cent difference was de minimis and would be rounded off to $100, so that B wound up with a judgment against him for $100. That's the concept of the negative pregnant, and that's kind of what we're looking at here. Because if the tax applies to an improvement worth $1 million, then and the improvement is actually worth $10 million, the concept of $1 million being included within a $10 million, pretty easy. I don't think you need to write off to the dean of Harvard Law School for that one. The second thing I have to say is that, and I've crowed about this before, that 11 GCA section 1106.1 allows the director to establish the office of the principal tax attorney at Rev Tax. So they could have their own legal office guiding them through these really tough ones that instead of dealing with, they just sit on them and let good opportunities get away before they mail them off to the Attorney General. So in that particular case, I think the legislature wins, Rev Tax loses. Again, we got that big halftime show coming up, and I'll be back after that to talk about people versus Chotforus.
The
point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Another political showdown brewing in the state that brought us hanging chads. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Florida's Senate race is headed to court.
Rick Scott is now suing the Palm Beach and Broward County Supervisor of Elections, saying they keep finding ballots now days after the polls closed.
There are 67 counties in Florida. Only these two counties are involved in these shenanigans.
Current Senator Bill Nelson's spokesman issued this. The goal here is to see that all the votes in Florida are counted and counted accurately. Rick Scott's action appears to be politically motivated and born out of desperation.
Fox's Leland Vittert. Governor Rick Scott had claimed victory in the Senate race, but incumbent Bill Nelson has not yet conceded. In Arizona, a judge will hear arguments Friday to limit vote counting in the still undecided Senate race there. At issue, the procedures used to verify signatures on mail-in ballots, which are not uniform across all counties in Arizona. Democrat Kyrsten Sinema is holding a very slim lead over Republican Martha McSally. Thousand Oaks, California, beginning the process of healing. Several hundred people attending a vigil Thursday night to the 12 victims of the Borderline nightclub shooting. Sarah Silicuca, who lives near the bar, tells Fox News it would have been worse, except for some heroes.
Greatly taxed our...
Thank God for the first responders, for those two officers that came. They saved lives. They saved those kids' lives, the rest of them that were in there, and sadly sacrificed one of their own.
Investigators spent the day Thursday combing through the shooter's home looking for insight into Ian David Long's motive. A Marine veteran, his mother says he suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder after doing at least one tour of Afghanistan. The sheriff says Long shot and killed himself as the SWAT team closed in after the carnage inside the bar. This is Fox News.
Looking for opinion done right?
Enjoy a world-class breakfast in historic Talafofo at Jeff's Pirates Cove. Serving as both a military dispensary, recreation, and rehab center for pilots after the war, Jeff's Pirates Cove offers a taste of local history while you start your day with a delicious omelet or steak and eggs. If you're on a budget, pick up one of Jeff's $8 breakfasts, all served up with endless coffee. For reservations and information, call 789-COVE. That's 789-2683. Start your day at Jeff's Pirates Cove. Open daily at...
Thousands of Californians are fleeing their homes ahead of wildfires being whipped by the Santa Ana winds. Firefighters say the entire town of Paradise, north of Sacramento, is burned. They estimate about 2,000 structures destroyed. Two other fires are burning in Ventura County in Southern California, where Assistant Fire Chief Chad Cook says fighting two fires
greatly taxed our resources. Yes, we have resources on order, and we feel with their timely arrival as the winds pick up this evening and through the night that we're able to make a good stand against the fire.
Gusts from the Santa Ana winds are expected to reach 55 miles an hour overnight. Charges have been filed against the captain of that Missouri duck boat that sank in July, killing 17 people.
A federal indictment charges 51-year-old Kenneth McKee with 17 counts of misconduct, negligence, and inattention to duty by a ship's officer in the July sinking of a duck boat near Branson during a sudden and violent storm.
He failed to instruct his passengers to don their personal flotation devices. He failed to immediately increase the speed and make the most direct path to shore.
U.S. Attorney Tim Garrison, 9 members of the same family among the 17 killed. Family members are suing the company that suspended operations following the accident. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
A federal judge in Montana has blocked the construction of the $8 billion Keystone XL oil pipeline to allow more time to study the project's potential environmental impact. The judge's order Thursday came as TransCanada was preparing to build the first stages of the oil pipeline into northern Montana. Environmental groups had sued TransCanada and the U.S. State Department to try and stop that project. Afghan police say attacks have killed at least 10 soldiers and 7 policemen in the northern Takhar province. The provincial police chief there is blaming the Taliban. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Super Typhoon U2 has become one of the strongest storms on record to date. APL recognizes the damage that U2 has left behind and sees an opportunity to help our neighboring brothers and sisters in the CNMI. We humbly ask for the community's assistance in providing donations and supplies to our fellow islanders. All supplies can be dropped off to our APL office or coordinated for pickup and loading. Call 588-4651 for more details and to learn how you can help today.
Family Finance, serving the people of Guam since 1959. Now you can start planning for the holidays by getting a personal Christmas loan from $1,000 up to $3,500. Family Finance has 3 convenient locations to serve you. Give them a call in Dededo, 633-4473, Hagåtña, 475-4545, and the Upper Tumon location on the 2nd floor of the Pacific Building at 647-5626. Get your Christmas loans today from Family Finance.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Sanford Technology Group, STG, delivering service that can't be beat.
I'm going to have to play that tomorrow when I start jonesing for more Tall Tales. I'm sure that'll perk me up a little bit, Real Joe Cruz. Does it have that effect on you, too?
Absolutely, sir.
Yeah, okay.
I often wonder if that's what you listen to for your alarm clock in the morning. What is it, 3 a.m. you get up, or 4?
I get up. Old guys tend to get up pretty early in the morning, So when you know that that when you're awake already, by the time the sun comes up, you are past the threshold of geezerhood.
Nice.
Yeah. So I want to give credit here to someone that I omitted when I was going through the Facebook here. Jose Martinez says Senator Talina Cruz Nelson is pro-life. She is one of the few Democrats who has the courage to stand up against her party. And I think that's worthy of mention. And Talina Cruz Nelson finished second in the general election. So there's something to be said for courage. Something else that I don't know how to characterize this exactly. It's hard to say that the Democratic Party is a loser when they had such a sweep of the offices. But it's interesting that a guy who broke party discipline did so well. Michael San Nicolas started out by beating Madeline Berdallo, who I frankly thought was probably as close to unbeatable as anyone we would see. In fact, I think I made that remark here on Tall Tales. He beat Madeline Berdallo, and then he came back and handily beat Doris Brooks, which is something that pretty hard to do. Doris has been extremely successful in politics. And Michael did that after saying, I don't need no stinking loyalty pledge. I'm not going to sign your loyalty pledge, incurring the wrath of Ken Paris, which isn't really that hard to do. But setting out on an independent course and being very, very successful. I don't know if that is a mark against the Democrats or in favor of San Nicolas, or exactly how to interpret it, but it's certainly something to make a note of for the next election. Okay, I'm going to turn now to People versus Chotforus. People versus Chotfris is a criminal trial. You'll recall that Mark Chotfris was charged with official misconduct and a few other things, going back to an incident that occurred Christmas Eve before last, where he showed up at Agate, where allegedly some people were shooting illegal fireworks, and Chotfris, in no uncertain terms, using impolite language, ordered several police officers to stop doing what they were doing. Now, the story is a little bit more complicated than that, but I think you get the drift. So because of that, he was fired from his job as the police colonel. His criminal trial started a couple days ago. Trials always start with opening statements by the prosecution, usually, but not always, by the defense, and then the first witness is called. The first witness, at the very beginning of the first witness's testimony, he said that he left the scene when Chotfris showed up because he suspected that Chotfris was a cohort of a gang called Agate Bloodtone. Defense counsel Randy Cunliffe objected and asked the judge to declare a mistrial. Judge Sokola declared a mistrial. Now, get your law and order notebooks out. We'll talk just a little bit about the law of evidence, why Judge Sokola dismissed, or as you were called, a mistrial, and what could happen next. So there is a rule in the rules of evidence called Rule 404, and it's called character evidence admissible to prove conduct, exceptions, other crimes. It says character evidence generally, evidence of a person's character or a trait of character is not admissible for the purpose of proving action in conformity therewith on a particular occasion, except. Okay, so usually the kind of evidence that that Officer Calvo, or that the prosecution elicited from Officer Calvo about Agate Bloodtown would not be admissible. But there is a subsection B to Rule 404, and it says evidence of other crimes, wrongs, or acts is not admissible to prove the character of a person in order to show that he acted in conformity therewith, period. It may, however, be admissible for other purposes, such as proof of motive, opportunity, intent, etc. Yeah, so, and that was the explanation, according to the paper, that this was an important part of the prosecution's case, because Chotfris had ordered all the police officers to stand down and get out of leave the vicinity. And the prosecution's case was the reason he did that was to help the Agate Bloodtone gang. So that would come in as an exception called, it may, however, character evidence may be admissible for other purposes, such as proof of motive. So that was their case. Now there's a catch to that one, and that is that provided that upon request of the accused, the prosecution in a criminal case shall provide reasonable notice in advance of trial of the general nature of any such evidence it intends to introduce at trial. So what this all means is that had the prosecution wanted to introduce this Agate Bloodtone gang into evidence, then they had a responsibility to give notice to defense counsel that that's what they were going to do. And if you stop and think about it, it makes a certain amount of sense, because if a person is charged with a crime and part of it goes to something like this, the defense ought to be able to prepare and not be surprised by something like this. And if you watch the TV, the newscast, that's exactly what Randy Cunliffe, counsel for Chodford, said, you know, this came out of nowhere, and it's so unfair because instead of proving that, instead of defending my client, I'm now faced with the unpalatable alternative of having to show that he is not a member of the Agate Bloodtown gang. So that's why, as far as I understand it, that's why Judge Senzon declared a mistrial. Now, when the court declares a mistrial, that means the court has said, you can do a do-over if you so desire, Mr. Prosecutor. We can proceed on the same indictment, and we'll set the matter down for another trial, and we'll start all over again, and you can see how it works out. That's the way it ordinarily works. But there's some talk that if the mistrial was prompted by prosecutorial misconduct, that the court could, on motion, dismiss with prejudice, meaning that the case could not come back for trial. So today's report on the case said that Randy Cunliffe was considering his next move, which may very well be to move that the case is dismissed with prejudice, which would mean that it would be all over. So in case you were wondering about the people of Guam versus Mark Chodford, now you've got something to write in your Law and Order notebook, and if there are further questions, I would answer them to the best of my ability. Apparently, I'm going to get an opportunity to do that because I've got someone on the line who has been known to call up and tell me that I didn't know Jack. Right, Jack?
Hey, good afternoon, Bob. How you doing?
Pretty good, Jack.
Yeah, it's going to be Veterans Day, so I want to wish you a happy Veterans Day.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. And so, you know, I was listening to you earlier, and I heard you say that the Republican Party has to recover from what Governor Calvo and L.T. Tenorio had done to just ruin the image of the party. But I'm just wondering, who are the party bosses over the GOP? And then who's the chairman? Who's the...
Well, right now, Jerry Crisostomo is the chairman of the Republican Party.
Yeah, I think that whole leadership needs to go. There are many lost opportunities. I mean, you know, we had the President Trump's tax cuts that helped us immensely. They weren't able to ride on the coattails, and that in fact they spoke disparagingly about the tax cuts. That really hurt them.
I remember one time Governor Calvo, very in righteous indignation, said, and the reason that we have all these problems is what some people in Washington did to us without our consent.
Well, I don't know who he's talking about because I got my tax cuts.
Well, he was talking about Congress cutting the taxes, and my remark was, it's the first time I've ever heard of anyone complaining about a tax cut in the manner that he did. But you're absolutely right. That could have been something that he embraced.
Yeah, and another thing is, do you remember when you were on the other radio show, I brought up the subject of Evan Montville Cohen and what he said about politics here in Guam when he was asked about, well, you guys have a Democrat and Republican Party there in Guam, do you have the same problems as we do in the mainland? And do you remember what I told you, what Evan Montville Cohen said?
Refresh my recollection, Jack.
He said there's no difference between the two parties here in Guam because they're basically progressive in nature.
Okay.
There's a lack of ideology. There's a lack of between the two. And you could basically label them small Democrat, big Democrats. There were a lot of opportunities to rally the GOP, those who are conservatives, by nature, rally them to their point. There are many opportunities. Dinesh D'Souza released a film explaining the difference between the Republicans and the Democratic Party. We had the Gosnell film that just released They had many opportunities. Says, hey, let's convene, let's watch a movie 1 hour together, let's rally our base, let's show them what we're about. Nothing. So here's the problem: is that even though the GOP lost significantly, there's not going to be any changes over there. It's going to be the same people calling the shots. When you said that Mary Torres didn't have any support of the GOP, it's going to be the same people calling. There's no changes that's going to happen there. There's no, we're not going to have a Tea Party here. We're not going to have a grass movement party that's based on, the governor, Lou Leon-Guerrero, now says that, the only value that you need to be concerned with is trust. Not truth, mind you, trust.
Well, every bank has Jack, every bank has a trust department, so.
And they even snatched those value system away from the GOP. I have no clue what the GOP party here. I know they favor taxation. I know they favor big government. Well, I want to give my Democrat opposition a chance to really nail the coffin on the GOP, because I think the GOP people here are really fodder. They're just small Democrats. Here's a very, very helpful way for you to boost revenue. Start taxing cars according to their value. Because right now we pay on when we go renew our registration, it's based on the weight of the car. If you start taxing a $90,000 car compared to a $19,000 car, there's your tax incentive right there. There's your
Yeah, but let's go back again to the Republican Party, Jack. Okay, for a second, which is what we started talking about, and to me, the real watershed was the 21st of November. 2014, when Tenorio and the Juan Pat 10 hijacked the Treasury, that was so un-Republican. And then when we got into the serial special sessions for tax increases for the Democrat, there was a difference in the parties, because the Democrats were the anti-tax party and the Republicans were the pro-tax party.
They switched roles.
Exactly. And historically, the Republicans had been anti-abortion. Unfortunately, it didn't go anywhere, but Governor Atta went to great lengths to defend the suit by the pro-abortion folks during the time he was governor. He lost and cost us a lot of money, but at least that was the Republican brand then. It was anti-abortion. Something that looked a little bit like fiscal conservatism, but this time around, not even close.
Not even close. But I remember we had the discussion, and then I that's the time that I mentioned Edville Montville Cohen, and that's when Sorensen went across the board, across seas, and started to build what was it called, Air America radio station.
That's right, yeah, Air America.
Yeah, so Edville made that comment, and that always stuck to my mind, because to me, even when I was a young person interested in politics when I grew up, I couldn't tell the difference between the two parties. I really couldn't, especially when I see my uncles switching sides at a drop of the hat. You understand?
Yeah. Well, historically,
all of a sudden you're a Republican, and then we had the whole thing with Francis Santos and Moylan.
Historically, Jack, there has been difference, not as extreme as in the mainland, and because of the small numbers, if you've only got 15 people in the legislature, 5 of them are nominal Republicans, and 1 of them goes to the left, it seems to have a much greater impact than it does in the States, where even in the States there are maverick Democrats, and there used to be, not so much anymore.
Well, I don't know, was this historically, and even when you go back to the coup, the legislative coup that happened, it just baffled my mind. I mean, how these people, I don't mind the legislature making arguments, across party lines, because we're just basic citizens. We have other things to do. We have work to do. We're trying to make a living. We elect these people to represent us, and to them to mete out what is right and what is wrong based on what we value. And so, I think that although you draw it back to that issue about signing in the pay raise, I think it goes back farther than that. I think there's a lack of ideology here.
I said for me, Jack. I said for me that was the watershed. That was
a long time ago.
That was the last straw.
Yeah, and so I hope that here's a chance for the Democrats to put their theory into practice. Let's see what happens. Or do they become Republicans and try to limit the size and scope of government, which I highly think that's going to happen. So it's going to be some tough times ahead. I don't think there's an easy road ahead of us,
I much prefer divided. I much prefer divided government when we have a governor who's from one party and a legislature from another. Having a situation where both legislature and governor are the same party can be really dangerous.
Yeah, and then dangerous. I don't know if it's dangerous. I think maybe there's less clarity. I think they might be more on point on the message that they're trying to get through. But it's just baffling when they ask questions like, why was there less voter turnout? After I voted, I went out, had a beer, and when I sat down with regular folks, that the people that I sat down didn't even bother to go out to vote. They looked at what difference does it make? Well, how they're both the same. It doesn't matter if we elect a Republican or a Democrat. It's always us at the low end of the spectrum that are getting taxed. Now they're going sales tax. It's always us with small properties that are being hit. It's like we're the solution. That's where the big funding is not coming from. When they refuse to look at the cars here, the disparity between the rich cars and those just using vehicles to get them from point A to point B. Why are they paying the same registration? If you really want to tax people and you really need funding, here's a clue. Start taxing those who have, not taxing those who have not.
Well, I'm sure that the soon-to-be governor's team is listening to you, Jack. So I'm sure your message, your message has been communicated. So I want to thank you for calling in and chiming in and being a little charitable and not telling me that I didn't know Jack. So thank you, Jack.
That whole GOP structure over there has got to go. You need some new leadership or something that knows.
And now, because the Real Joe is playing Take 5,
okay.
I got to go.
Okay,
thanks, Jack.
Have a great weekend.
All right.
We're surrounded by sound. There are sounds that you need to hear. There are sounds that you want to hear. And there are sounds that you long to hear. Hear it all, louder and clearer than ever before. If you or someone you know has a hard time hearing, Guam Hearing Doctors can help using state-of-the-art test gear to evaluate your hearing and coming up with a plan to make your life better by making your hearing better. Call Guam Hearing Doctors for an appointment or visit them on the web at guamhearingdoctors.com.
It's Micronesia Mall's 30th anniversary, and to celebrate, we are giving away a new Kia Soul LX, a Mazda 3i Sport, the popular Honda Civic LX, and 30 Manila Flyaways during our 30th anniversary Drive-Away Flyaway. Win 3 great cars from Triple J Auto Group, 30 Flyaways from Philippine Airlines, plus thousands of prizes from Burger King and Foot Locker when you play Micronesia Mall's 30th anniversary Drive-Away Flyaway.
Celebrate Thanksgiving brunch at Jeff's Pirates Cove, offering lunch buffet on Thanksgiving Day from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Call now for reservations at 789-2683.
was quite a hit there all the way to the center field bleacher, as were a center field fence at Wrigley Field, center field wall. And Jack Haddock was in the stands this time. He wasn't out on the field playing. He was looking for some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I could just about hear him singing, "Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack. I don't care if I never get back." So that's one of the really exciting features of Tall Tales every day, the seventh inning stretch. We've had some great fielding and hitting by Jack Haddock in the past week or so. Jack was a spectator today. Because we had the seventh inning stretch, it means there's only 2 more innings left here in today's Tall Tales episode. Next item on the card is called a Dutchman versus reality. So this the headline is, and this is something that I got out. I got it from the Huffington Post, of all places. I read the Huffington Post, the New York Times, and all of these other left-wing publications just to see what the other folks are doing. And here's from the Huffington Post. A 69-year-old Dutch man attempts to legally lower his age to 49. Emil Reitelbland has filed a lawsuit against the Dutch government requesting that his date of birth be switched from March 11, 1949 to March 11, 1969. Reitelbland, a media personality and motivational guru specializing in self-awareness, compares his attempt to turn back the clock to identifying as transgender. We live in a time when you can change your name and change your gender. Why can't I decide my own age, he asked, according to the BBC. Reitelband told a court in Arnhem that having an official age that did not reflect his emotional state was a challenge for his career and his love life, according to The Guardian. When I'm 69, I am limited. If I'm 49, then I can buy a new house, drive a different car. I can take up more work. When I'm on Tinder and it says I'm 69, I don't get an answer. When I'm 49, with the face I have, I will be in a luxurious position. Reitelband told AFP that telling his real biological age to a prospective date was cramping his style. I feel much younger than my age. I am a young god. I can have all the girls I want, but not after I tell them that I'm 69. Reitelband told the news agency, I feel young and I'm in great shape, and I want this to be legally recognized because I feel abused, aggrieved, and discriminated against because of my age. Reitelband said that in exchange for being legally younger, he would agree to renounce his pension. The judge acknowledged Reitelband's argument, noting that the law does not, noting that the law does allow people to change their gender. However, the judge also noted that allowing people to change their birth date would mean legally deleting part of their lives, according to the Telegraph. The written ruling is expected within 4 weeks. So finally, we found out where the line can be drawn. Thank you, Mr. Dutchman. Next item on the card, Girl Scouts versus Boy Scouts. Girl Scouts sue Boy Scouts over trademark as boys welcome girls. The Girl Scouts of the United States of America filed a trademark infringement lawsuit against the Boy Scouts of America on Tuesday after the Boy Scouts decided to drop, quote, boy from its namesake program and start welcoming older girls. The lawsuit in Manhattan federal court is an attempt by the Girl Scouts, founded in 1912, to avert an erosion of its brand and membership as the Boy Scouts, founded 2 years earlier, tries to reverse its own decades-long membership decline. It was filed after the Boy Scouts, which accepts children 11 to 17 years old, said in May that it would change its name to Scouts BSA in February 2019 and make girls eligible to earn its highest rank, Eagle Scout. The Boy Scouts said in a statement it was reviewing the lawsuit. And there we go again, Real Joe Cruz. The Boy Scouts said in a statement it was reviewing the lawsuit. I don't know. Boy Scouts let in girls. The Girl Scouts are suing the Boy Scouts. The Boy Scouts are it. But you can't go to court to have your age changed. That's one thing so far we're kind of definite on, right? We applaud every organization that builds character, this is a quote, that builds character and leadership in children, including the Girl Scouts of the USA, and believe that there is an opportunity for both organizations to serve girls and boys in our community. It added. Based in Irving, Texas, the Boy Scouts recently had 2.28 million members, less than half its 1970s peak, while the Girl Scouts, based in Manhattan, said it has about 2 million. In the complaint, the Girl Scouts said the Boy Scouts have no monopoly over such terms as scouts and scouting when it offers services to girls. It also said the name change threatens to marginalize Girl Scout activities and has already sown confusion. Now, how would that happen? Just because we're letting girls into the Boy Scouts, how could that possibly sow confusion with families, schools, and communities nationwide being told the organization no longer exists or merged with the Boy Scouts? So people think that that the Girl Scouts are gone, that they've been absorbed by the Boy Scouts. Only GSUSA has the right to use Girl Scouts and Scout trademarks with the leadership development services for girls. And the Boy Scouts infringement are, quote, new and uniquely damaging to GSUSA, the complaint said. We did what any brand, company, corporation, organization would do to protect its intellectual property, the value of its brand in the marketplace, and to defend its good name, the Girl Scouts said in a statement. The Boy Scouts has said its rebranding was part of a single-name approach it adopted when it decided in October 2017 to let girls enroll in the Cub Scouts. Now, I wonder if the Bears are going to... I wonder if the heirs of P.K. Wrigley are going to file suit. You know, let's see, a single name approach it adopted when it decided in October 2017 to let girls enroll in the Cub Scouts for children 7 to 10 years old. It has also launched a, quote, Scout Me In campaign featuring boys and girls. The case is Girl Scouts of the United States of America versus Boy Scouts of America, U.S. District Court, Southern District of New York, number 18-10287. I'm going to follow that case. And I'll let you know how things go. Next item on the calendar is RICO versus pot. And let me define some terms. Pot is the street name for marijuana, which is kind of the street name for cannabis, right? And cannabis and marijuana have been in the news a lot in the last 4 years. You'll recall we had a referendum to determine whether or not we should have legal medicinal cannabis available for people here on the island. The referendum passed, and since it passed, we have seen the legislature, I suppose, at its best. One cluster fumble after another, and finally, what was decided was just to let people grow marijuana at home, but not to grow too much of it. That was kind of the workaround to having a program that would have passed muster under the first theories of how to go about doing it. So that's what pot means. Pot means marijuana, cannabis, etc. RICO is an acronym, and it stands for Racketeer Influence Corrupt Organizations. Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations. So this item on the card is RICO versus pot. And this is something that I picked up from a website that, as it were, an email that I read every day, called Find Law. And it's titled, Colorado Marijuana RICO Jury Trial Goes to Pot. That's a pretty clever headline, right? Nice little play on words there with the word pot. The marijuana business is booming, but alongside the boom, the market, governments, and society in general are reacting to the rise of legal and medicinal marijuana. One seemingly nefarious response to the pot industry has been the rise of RICO lawsuits against various legal marijuana businesses brought by neighboring and business owners related to an alleged nuisance caused by pot farming and business generally. Fortunately for the industry, the first legal pot jury verdict is in, and the jury didn't agree with the aggrieved plaintiffs. If your head has been in the clouds, who says lawyers don't have a sense of humor? And you haven't heard about this line of cases, brace yourselves. Due to the fact that pot is illegal federally, neighboring businesses and landowners have been using the RICO statutes to civilly prosecute marijuana businesses for acting in concert and causing them damages, such as decreased property values due to smell and increased traffic, mostly. In short, the farms, processing plants, and distribution points are major targets in these cases that allege that the various marijuana businesses act in concert as part of a criminal enterprise. That's where the C in RICO comes from. A criminal enterprise to violate federal law, even though they're following state law. Curiously, it is noted that plaintiffs in the Colorado case were able to prove violations of RICO. They actually were able to prove that the defendant in that particular case was a racketeer influenced and corrupt organization, but failed to prove up damages. They sought to show diminished property value to their neighboring ranch, and despite expert testimony to that effect, the jury was not swayed. Interestingly, this first case tried to a jury may just be that, the first case tried to a jury. There are several others in the pipeline, not just in Colorado. In fact, there are now CLE courses, continuing legal education courses, that specifically lay out the framework for bringing these types of cases against marijuana businesses. And let's see, the 10th Circuit allows RICO cases against pot farms, etc. So I think this is this is something we're going to be reading about more, that although state law would allow for marijuana processing plants, farms, etc., since it's against federal law, an aggrieved citizen could bring a suit under the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, a suit for damages against the cannabis companies. So kind of an interesting development in that area of the law. Next item on the card. Where did I put the card? It's called Gosnell versus Hollywood. So again, defining terms. Gosnell is a movie. It's called Gosnell, and something like the largest serial murder in the United States. It's a movie. Hollywood is one thing. It's a part of Los Angeles, California, and it's built in a valley, and on a hill on the side of the valley, there is a great big white sign that says Hollywood, so you'll know that you're there. Hollywood is also a state of mind, and that's how I'm using it here in this item on the card. It's a state of mind, a particular mindset that is hard to the left, and that mindset is employed by lefties, screenwriters, actors, actresses, producers, theater owners, etc., sort of the people who pretty much control Hollywood. Now, there are a few conservative actors and people in the movie business, but not very many. John Wayne, rest in peace. So the title of this article from Town Hall is "The Media Censorship of Gosnell Movie." There is a widespread belief that Hollywood is only interested in making money, and it is far too simplistic a view. There is something they value much more than money, and that is ideology, and not just any ideology. The entertainment industry has been liberal for a long time, but in recent years, it has become increasingly and stridently intolerant. Trump's election seems to have tipped them over the line into insanity. Virtually every day reveals a new celebrity tweeting, speaking, producing, or starring in something that is finally going to expose just how awful the President of the United States is and promote the liberal agenda. I know this from my experience as the producer and screenwriter of the highly controversial movie Gosnell, the trial of America's biggest serial killer. The Gosnell film surpassed box office expectations by entering the top 10 grossing films with revenue of $1,235,000 on just 668 screens on the opening weekend. Further, the film is growing in buzz in the media rather than declining. Yet despite their solid performance for an independent film of this sort, nearly 200 theaters have inexplicably dropped the film, including those in major cities where it is performing the strongest. So coming up to the home stretch here, I'm going to finish Gosnell between now and the end of the program. Pretty interesting article, and it ties into some of the other things we've been talking about today.
For over 30 years, Sanford Technology Group has been helping companies throughout Guam and Micronesia with their payroll, time and attendance, networking, and other information technology services. Our online integrated payroll and time and attendance solution provides the workforce management tools and expertise to make your business more efficient and employee-friendly. For more information, visit Sanford Technology at 335 South Marine Corps Drive or call us at 647-0220 to schedule a demo today.
Super Typhoon U2 spared us here on Guam, but the same cannot be said for our neighboring islands. From now till November 16th, join us as we help Saipan and Tinian to get back on their feet. Acceptable donations include batteries, flashlights, tools, cleaning supplies, mosquito coils, rope, toiletries, personal hygiene items, and others. Donations can be dropped off to all GTA stores, the Guam Daily Post, all Guam Fire Department stations, and the Santa Teresita Catholic Church. For more information on how you can help, visit postguam.com.
Life is too short to be isolated from the people you love. Hearing loss is the invisible disability. The experts at Guam Hearing Doctors have solutions.
So here we are, heading on the home stretch of Tall Tales. I got about 9 more minutes to go, and I'm going to try to finish up Gosnell versus Hollywood. Coming into the second week, the article starts out by saying that it was an independent movie, and it started out being very profitable, even though it wasn't shown in a lot of theaters. Coming into the second week, Gosnell has dropped from 668 theaters to 480 theaters, a full 188 theater drop, 15 of which were top-performing metroplexes. I can tell you from my experience of 15 years of releasing movies independently, we're in uncharted territory, says my colleague John Sullivan, Gosnell's marketing director and producer. It's an impacted fall, no doubt about it, but the fact that we've dropped from theaters where the movie is number 6 or number 9 movie is just something you don't see. There is a universally acknowledged reason for this hushed and rapid dismissal of a massively successful film. Gosnell is about abortion, and it unabashedly exposes the truth about the abortion industry through the trial of Kermit Gosnell, a Philadelphia abortion lawyer. In 2013, a jury convicted Gosnell of murdering 3 newborn babies and contributing to the death of a female patient, along with numerous other crimes and many suspected atrocities. He was sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms in prison. In short, the Gosnell movie shines a very negative spotlight on the horrors of abortion, and the entertainment industry cannot take it. Their response? Simply drop Gosnell from theaters. This kind of resistance is disappointing, but in no way shocking. The mainstream media has always attempted to ignore Gosnell's crimes, from their lack of coverage of the original trial to their treatment of the movie now. When Ann and I wrote Gosnell, the Untold Story of America's Most Prolific Serial Killer, the New York Times bestseller list refused to acknowledge the book as the astonishing best-selling book it was. Eventually, media inquiries forced them to correct this, but they put the book at number 13 when it should have been at 4. The Gosnell movie's struggles began when the crowdfunding site Kickstarter refused to allow us to fundraise there, forcing us to go in Diego, where we ended up breaking a crowdfunding record. Soon after, NPR, National Public Radio, rejected one of our ads. We were told that we could not call Gosnell an abortion doctor. NPR claimed the term is not value neutral, but it has used the term in its own reporting numerous times. Then Facebook started rejecting our ads, and we have received just 2 mainstream reviews of the film. In comparison, Beautiful Boy, which opened on fewer scenes and has taken a fraction of the box office, has received 36 mainstream reviews. Gosnell is certainly controversial content, but it's not the content that's deserving of censorship. We have made sure that the movie and advertising are free of any graphic images. The film is rated PG-13, and many people have let us know they brought their teenage children to see Gosnell, and that the film sparked fascinating conversations in the car on the way home. This is content that the world should be allowed to see. These are topics that on social media should have the ability to, those on social media should have the ability to think about. And yet Facebook, NPR, and the many liberal news outlets who refuse to cover Gosnell are making an explicit statement that they want to completely hide Gosnell from the public. All the more reason, then, for Americans to assert their independence and get out to theaters to see Gosnell. See the momentous film made by the indie filmmakers on a tight budget, made because they knew the desperate significance of the Gosnell trial, the not-so-subtle pro-choice anxieties of the Kavanaugh hearings make it all too clear that abortion is one of the most significant political stories of the moment. Americans need to know and need facts now more than ever, now as they are to make serious decisions about abortion in a post-Roe versus Wade world. We recognize that allowing the media to censor and silence films is completely unacceptable. Many out there have also recognized this, and the support from Gosnell viewers through social media, reviews, conservative radio, TV, print outlets have been overwhelming. Let's keep up the good fight, exposing the truth. So that's why I labeled this Gosnell versus Hollywood. Hollywood being not only just a geographical location, but also a state of mind, and a not very healthy state of mind. Jose tells us that Gosnell is still playing at Micronesia Ball, but will leave on Thursday the 15th. So if you haven't seen it, I went to see it the first night it showed. I didn't want to run the risk of having it Gosnelled right here in Guam. So it's pretty interesting as per the description that I just provided for you. And then there are a couple of interesting subtexts in the movie. I won't need to give you a spoiler alert here because I think pretty much everybody knows what the movie's about. But one of the subtexts was that in Philadelphia, abortion was a protected industry. So that to talk about abortion or to do anything about abortion, government, private, whatever, was kind of like going after the breweries in Milwaukee. It wasn't something that you did to that particular protected industry in Philadelphia. The other subtext, perhaps a pretty easy to detect subtext, was that once you understand what Gosnell did, you have a really difficult time in distinguishing what he did and what is legal. You know, it's an extremely fine line and one that perhaps should be erased. So, happy Marine Corps birthday, happy Veterans Day, and Real Joe and I will stumble along without any tall tales until Monday, but we'll see you then. Adios. Good night.